I received the divorce papers via certified mail while I was at Children's Hospital. 7 years of marriage ended in an envelope I had to sign for with one hand. My sleeping 4-year-old son's fingers curled around the other. My name is Thomas Mercer, 37, pediatric physical therapist, and now a single father. I'd been living at the hospital with Lucas for 3 months while he underwent treatment for leukemia when Vanessa decided she couldn't handle our life anymore. The papers contained a single handwritten note: "I need space to breathe." But what she didn't know was that I'd found the plane tickets and hotel reservations 6 weeks earlier. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The hospital volunteer delivering mail that day noticed my hands shaking. "Bad news?" she asked, concern in her eyes. "Just paperwork," I replied, sliding the envelope under Lucas's coloring books. The volunteer nodded and continued her rounds. I didn't break down, didn't throw anything, didn't call Vanessa to demand an explanation. Later that evening, when the night nurse came to check Lucas's vitals, she asked if I was okay. "You look like you haven't slept." "Just the usual," I said, forcing a smile. She squeezed my shoulder and promised to keep an extra eye on Lucas if I wanted to go to the family room for a break. Truth is, I wasn't surprised. 4 months earlier, before Lucas's diagnosis, things had changed. Small things. Vanessa started working late at her marketing firm, started taking weekend self-care retreats I wasn't invited to join, started making new friends whose names she mentioned but whom I never met, new clothes, new perfume, new passwords on her phone. I didn't confront her. Didn't start checking her messages or following her to verify her whereabouts. That's not who I am, especially with Lucas's health becoming a concern even then. But I wasn't blind either, so I made some quiet moves of my own. Nothing dramatic, just precautions. I secured important documents in a fireproof box at my brother's house: birth certificates, marriage license, the deed to our house with both our names, my teaching credentials, Lucas's medical records. I moved the family heirlooms my grandmother had left me, a vintage watch collection, and some modest jewelry, to the same location. I also opened a separate account at a different bank and started diverting part of my salary there. Not enough that she'd notice, but enough that I wouldn't be starting from zero if things collapsed. Then came Lucas's diagnosis, and everything else became secondary. The day we received the news, Vanessa stood in the oncologist's office, hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I held Lucas on my lap, his small body already weakened by the disease we hadn't yet identified, and promised him everything would be okay. I looked to Vanessa for support, for partnership in this moment of crisis, but her eyes were fixed on the floor, already somewhere else. "I can't do this," she whispered in the parking lot afterward. "I'm not strong enough." "We'll do it together," I said, buckling Lucas into his car seat. "That's what marriage is." She nodded, but her expression remained distant. 2 weeks later, when Lucas was admitted for his first round of chemotherapy, Vanessa came to the hospital for the initial consultation, then left to grab some things from home. She returned 6 hours later, smelling of wine and wearing freshly applied makeup. "Traffic," she explained, not meeting my eyes. As Lucas's treatment progressed, her visits became shorter, less frequent. There was always a reason: work deadlines, migraines, her mother needed help across town. I didn't push. Lucas needed at least one parent fully present, and if I had to be both mother and father during this time, so be it. What she didn't know was that I'd prepared for this moment, and what she didn't understand was that I never start fights, but I do finish them. I met Vanessa at a fundraiser for the children's ward where I worked. This was in 2016. She was coordinating the event for the marketing firm that represented the hospital. I was there representing the rehabilitation department. She dropped her program, and I picked it up. A meet-cute straight out of a romantic comedy. She was vibrant, ambitious, always moving. I was steady, patient, comfortable with silence. Opposites, attracting in the most cliched way. We were married 11 months later. Our son Lucas was born in 2019, and for a while we were happy. The sleepless nights and diaper changes brought us closer rather than pushing us apart. Vanessa took 8 months of maternity leave, surprising both of us with her natural affinity for motherhood. When she returned to work, she negotiated a flexible schedule, often bringing Lucas to the office or working from home when he was sick. "He's the best thing we've ever done," she told me on his first birthday, watching him smash cake into his hair and mouth. I believed her. My parents both passed away before Lucas was born, my father from a sudden stroke when I was in college, my mother from breast cancer 6 months before our wedding. Vanessa's parents were divorced, her father remarried and living in Florida, her mother nearby but self-absorbed and unreliable. We were a small family unit, the 3 of us, but it felt complete. I'd inherited my parents' house, a modest 3-bedroom in a good school district. We renovated it together, weekend by weekend, turning it into our home. My name was the primary one on the mortgage since I'd inherited it, but I added Vanessa to the deed because that's what partners do, share things, preparing and narrating. This story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My mother had left a small life insurance policy, enough to pay off my student loans and start a college fund for Lucas. We lived comfortably on our dual incomes, saving for vacations and home improvements rather than struggling to make ends meet. The first 2 years of Lucas's life were exhausting but joyful. Vanessa and I worked as a team, taking turns with middle-of-the-night wake-ups, weekend mornings so the other could sleep in, trading off sick days when daycare sent him home with a fever. Looking back, I can pinpoint when things changed. Lucas was almost 3, finally sleeping through the night consistently. The immediate demands of babyhood were behind us, and suddenly there was space to remember we were individuals, not just parents. Vanessa started talking about feeling lost in motherhood, wanting to reclaim parts of herself. "I love Lucas more than anything," she told me one night after he was asleep. "But sometimes I feel like I've disappeared." I suggested date nights, finding babysitters so we could reconnect. I encouraged her to reconnect with friends, take classes, find hobbies outside of work and family. I thought I was being supportive. Maybe I was just opening the door. The changes were gradual at first. A book club that met every other Thursday became weekly, then included weekend brunches. Girls' nights that used to end at 10 p.m. started seeing her home after midnight, sometimes not until morning. Business trips that had once included daily FaceTime calls to say goodnight to Lucas now featured sporadic texts and missed calls. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," she said when I gently asked if everything was okay. "The firm is considering me for partner. This could change everything for us." I believed her because I wanted to, because the alternative was too painful to consider. Then Lucas started getting frequent infections, unexplained bruises, fatigue that seemed excessive even for an active preschooler. After the 3rd ear infection in 2 months, our pediatrician ordered blood work, just to be safe. The call came on a Tuesday. "We need you to bring Lucas back in today," the nurse said, her voice carefully neutral. "Dr. Patterson wants to discuss his lab results." Vanessa was in Chicago for a marketing conference. When I called to tell her, the doctor wanted to see us. She said she'd try to get an earlier flight but couldn't promise anything. I took Lucas alone. The diagnosis hit like a physical blow. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia, the most common childhood cancer, Dr. Patterson assured me. Highly treatable, good prognosis with prompt intervention. All I could see was my son's small face, his too pale skin, the bruises that I'd attributed to normal childhood clumsiness, but were actually his body betraying him. When I called Vanessa from the hospital parking lot, she burst into tears. "I'm coming home," she promised. First flight out. She arrived the next morning, eyes red-rimmed, clutching a teddy bear she'd bought at the airport gift shop. For 3 days she was present, engaged, researching treatment options and taking notes during doctor consultations. Then the partner, at her firm, called about a client emergency, and she disappeared into our home office for hours. "They're counting on me," she explained. "I can't just drop everything." "Our son has cancer," I said, my voice breaking for the first time since the diagnosis. She looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of something. Not guilt exactly, but awareness. Then it was gone. "I know," she said, "and the best thing I can do is make sure we keep our insurance and financial stability. You focus on Lucas, I'll handle everything else." Except she didn't. As Lucas began treatment, Vanessa's absences grew longer, her excuses more elaborate. The marketing conference in Chicago became a client retreat in San Francisco, then a brand launch in Miami. Each time, she'd return with expensive gifts for Lucas, toys he was often too sick to play with, and promises to be more present. 6 weeks into Lucas's treatment, I was essentially living at the hospital. Vanessa had visited 3 times. Never staying overnight despite the comfortable parent rooms the hospital provided. I didn't press her, focusing instead on being strong for our son, learning to change his central line dressings, memorizing his medication schedule, becoming fluent in the language of blood counts and chemotherapy protocols. One night, while Lucas was finally sleeping peacefully, I used Vanessa's laptop to check our joint calendar, trying to coordinate a time when she might be able to spell me at the hospital so I could go home for fresh clothes and a real shower. That's when I saw it. An open email confirmation for flight tickets and a hotel reservation. Miami again, but not alone this time. 2 passengers, Vanessa Mercer and Jason Tate. A hotel room with a king bed and ocean view. A dinner reservation. For 2 at a restaurant, where the average entree cost more than I spent on food for a week at the hospital cafeteria. Jason Tate, her colleague. Her work friend, who'd sent a generic get-well card for Lucas that she'd brought to the hospital along with a stack of mail, whose name she'd mentioned with increasing frequency over the past year. I closed the laptop and sat in the dimly lit hospital room, listening to the rhythmic beeping of Lucas's monitors, watching his small chest rise and fall with each breath. I didn't feel anger, not really, just a profound sadness and oddly relief. The uncertainty was gone. The pretending could stop. I didn't confront her, didn't mention what I'd found. Instead, I continued focusing on Lucas, on being the parent he could count on. I also began making phone calls during his nap times, to our family lawyer, to my brother, to the hospital social worker who helped families navigate medical crises, including, as it turned out, the legal complications of divorce. During a child's illness. 2 weeks after discovering the Miami trip, I received the divorce papers. Vanessa had filed on grounds of irreconcilable differences, requesting equal custody of Lucas once he was medically stable, but with primary physical custody going to me temporarily during the medical crisis. She wanted to keep her car, her retirement accounts, and requested the house be sold with proceeds divided equally. There was no mention of Lucas's ongoing medical costs, no acknowledgement that equal custody was a fantasy given his treatment schedule and her frequent travel, no recognition that selling our home would uproot a critically ill child from the only stability he had left. That night, after Lucas fell asleep, I called my brother Michael. "She actually did it," I said, my voice steady despite the churning in my stomach. "Filed for divorce while I'm sitting here watching our son fight for his life." Michael's silence spoke volumes, followed by a string of expletives that would have earned Lucas a timeout for a month. "What do you need?" he finally asked. "Time," I said. "Just hold on to those documents we talked about, and maybe bring me some clean clothes next time you visit. I think I'm going to be here a while." You know you can come stay with us when Lucas is discharged, he offered. Sarah already has the guest room set up, and the kids would love having their cousin around. Let's see what happens, I said, though I was already making mental calculations. How to maintain Lucas's stability while navigating this new reality. How to protect him from the fallout of adult decisions he had no part in making. How to be both mother and father to a child who needed all the love and security we could provide. The next morning, a hospital volunteer delivered a vase of flowers, bright sunflowers and blue irises, Lucas's favorites. The card read, "Thinking of you. Both call me when you can. E.V." I placed the flowers where Lucas could see them when he woke up, then stepped into the hallway to text her. "Papers received. Will respond through my lawyer. Lucas is having a good day." Her reply came immediately. "Lawyer, Thomas, I thought we could handle this amicably." I didn't respond, focusing instead on preparing for Lucas's day, organizing his medications, reviewing the treatment schedule with his nurse, selecting storybooks for when the pain medicine made him too tired to play but not tired enough to sleep. 3 days later, Vanessa appeared at the hospital, designer handbag in one hand, stuffed dinosaur in the other. She looked polished, rested, nothing like a mother who'd spent months worrying about her critically ill child. "I thought I'd sit with him so you could take a break," she offered, her voice tentative. "Maybe get some real food or take a walk outside." I nodded, gathering my phone and wallet. His next dose of anti-nausea medication is in an hour. The nurse knows, but he usually starts feeling sick about 20 minutes before it's due. "I remember," she said, though we both knew she'd rarely been present for these cycles. I walked the hospital corridors, then outside to a small garden area where families could find moments of peace amid medical chaos. My phone buzzed with a text. "From Michael. Lawyer called. You were right about the house. I'd suspected as much." The refinancing paperwork Vanessa had mentioned casually months ago, which I'd signed without scrutiny, trusting her to handle our finances while I focused on Lucas. It hadn't been routine at all. She'd removed my inherited equity positioning. The house as a jointly purchased asset rather than one I'd brought to the marriage. It wasn't illegal. I had signed the papers. But it revealed a level of calculation that made my stomach turn. When I returned to Lucas's room an hour later, I found him vomiting while Vanessa stood helplessly nearby, looking more concerned about the splatter on her designer blouse than our son's distress. "I was just about to call the nurse," she said, as I rushed to Lucas's side, grabbing the basin and rubbing his back with practiced movements. "The medicine is prescribed for a reason," I said quietly, pressing the call button. "You can't wait until he's already sick." She looked away, guilt flashing across her face. I didn't realize it was time. The nurse arrived, administered the medication, and helped clean Lucas up. When she left, Vanessa gathered her things. "I have a late meeting," she explained, not quite meeting my eyes, "but I can come back tomorrow." Lucas, drowsy from the medication, barely acknowledged her goodbye kiss. After she left, he turned his pale face toward me. "Is Mommy mad at me?" "No, buddy," I assured him, brushing hair from his forehead. "Mommy's just busy with work. She loves you very much." "But she doesn't stay," he said, his 4-year-old perception cutting straight to the truth adults tried to obscure. "Some people don't know how to be strong when hard things happen," I explained, choosing my words carefully. "It doesn't mean they don't love you. It just means they're figuring things out." He seemed to accept this, drifting off to sleep while I sat beside him, continuing to stroke his hair long after his breathing had deepened. That night, I made another list on my phone. Contact bank about the home equity line, schedule consultation with custody evaluator, research medical support requirements during divorce review, Lucas's treatment calendar for the next 3 months. Update hospital visitation permissions. I didn't feel betrayed anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I felt focused, like I was preparing for the most important case of my life, not as a lawyer, which I wasn't, but as a father fighting for his son's well-being. This wasn't about emotion now. This was about Lucas. The next morning, I received a text from Vanessa. "Can we talk about this divorce thing? I think we're making this more complicated than it needs to be." I responded simply, "My lawyer will contact yours." That afternoon, while Lucas was having tests done, I met with the hospital's social worker, a compassionate woman named Eleanor, who specialized in helping families navigate serious childhood illnesses. Divorce during medical crisis isn't uncommon, she told me, her voice gentle but matter-of-fact. In fact, the divorce rate among parents of children with cancer is significantly higher than the general population. "I'm not surprised," I said, "but I am concerned about how to protect Lucas through this. He needs stability right now more than ever." Eleanor nodded. "The courts typically prioritize medical continuity for children in your son's situation. Have you considered requesting temporary full custody with structured visitation for your wife?" "I've thought about it," I admitted. "But I don't want to use Lucas's illness as a weapon in a divorce. That feels wrong." "It's not a weapon to acknowledge reality," Eleanor said. "Your son requires consistent care from someone who understands his medical needs. That's not punitive, it's protective." I left the meeting with resources, referrals, and a clearer sense of direction. This wasn't about punishing Vanessa for her affair or her abandonment. This was about creating the most stable environment possible for Lucas during the fight of his young life. When I returned to Lucas's room, I found Vanessa sitting by his bed, watching as he slept. She looked up. As I entered, her eyes red-rimmed. "The nurse said his numbers are better today," she said, her voice hushed. I nodded, checking the whiteboard where the medical team tracked his daily information. "White counts coming up. That's good." We sat in silence for a moment, the beeping monitors and Lucas's soft breathing the only sounds. "Thomas," she finally said, "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry," I interrupted, surprised to find it was true. "I'm disappointed, and I'm focused on Lucas. That's all I have capacity for right now. But the lawyer is necessary," I finished, "because we need clear agreements about Lucas's care, our finances, and what happens next. Clarity protects everyone, especially him." She looked away, tears welling in her eyes. I never meant for any of this to happen. I almost asked which part: Lucas's illness, the affair, the divorce. All of it seemed interconnected now, a series of dominoes that had been set in motion months or even years ago. Instead, I said, "I know, but it has happened, and now we need to deal with it responsibly." When she left an hour later, promising to return the next day, a promise I doubted she'd keep, I pulled out my phone and texted my brother, "Moving forward with the plan. Let's meet when you can." 2 weeks into my new reality as both a soon-to-be single father and primary caregiver to a critically ill child, I met with my lawyer, Caroline Freeman. My brother Michael had recommended her, a family law specialist with experience in medical custody situations. We met in the hospital cafeteria during Lucas's afternoon nap, his room monitored by the nursing staff who had become our extended family. "I've reviewed everything," Caroline said, spreading documents across the cafeteria table. "Your situation is challenging, but not unprecedented." I nodded, sipping lukewarm coffee that tasted like burnt cardboard, the same cup I'd been nursing for hours. "What am I looking at?" Caroline tapped a document with a highlighted section. "Your wife's filings request joint custody," which sounds reasonable on paper, but the temporary provision giving you primary physical custody during the medical crisis is concerning. It positions her for equal custody once Lucas recovers, without acknowledging her minimal involvement in his care. She's his mother, I said reflexively. Caroline's expression softened. Thomas, I'm not questioning her love for Lucas. I'm highlighting potential issues with the custody arrangement she's proposing. Equal legal custody with a parent who isn't familiar with medical protocols could put Lucas at risk. The reality of Caroline's words settled over me. This wasn't just about dividing assets or establishing visitation schedules. This was about ensuring Lucas received consistent care from someone who knew exactly which medications caused which side effects, how to clean his central line to prevent infection, which signs warranted an emergency call to the oncologist. I don't want to keep her from him, I clarified. I just need to make sure his care isn't compromised. Of course, Caroline agreed. Now about the house situation. She explained what I'd already suspected. The refinancing had effectively nullified the inherited status of the home, making it a marital asset subject to equal division. The timing, just 3 months before Lucas's diagnosis, raised questions, but without proof of malicious intent, challenging it would be difficult. She got what she wanted, I said flatly. The house can be sold. I just need enough time to find a suitable place for Lucas's recovery. Caroline made notes. We can request a delayed sale pending Lucas's medical stability. Courts are generally sympathetic to maintaining stability for ill children. We discussed other aspects of the divorce, division of retirement accounts, the joint checking account Vanessa had already emptied. We'll address that in the counterfilings. And Lucas's ongoing medical expenses. Our insurance covers most of it, I explained, but the co-pays, the medications insurance doesn't fully cover, the special foods he can tolerate during treatment. It adds up. Child support calculations will factor in extraordinary medical expenses, Caroline assured me. And speaking of finances, there's something else we should discuss. She pulled out another document, bank statements showing large transfers from our joint account to a name I didn't recognize, Avalon Properties LLC. What's this? I asked. I'm not entirely sure, Caroline admitted, but these transfers began 7 months ago and totaled just over $47,000. I stared at the numbers, trying to reconcile them with our life. 7 months ago, before Lucas's diagnosis, around the time Vanessa had started mentioning her colleague Jason more frequently. Can you find out what Avalon Properties is? I asked. Caroline nodded. Already on it. My paralegal is running a business entity search. I should have information by tomorrow. As we concluded our meeting, Caroline handed me her card with her cell number handwritten on the back. Call any time, day or night. I know hospital schedules don't follow normal business hours. I thanked her, tucking the card into my wallet as we stood to leave. Thomas, she said hesitantly, I know you're focused on Lucas, as you should be, but I want you to prepare yourself. Divorces rarely bring out people's best qualities, and when children and money are involved. I understand, I said, though I wasn't sure I did fully comprehend what was coming. When I returned to Lucas's room, I found him awake, building a Lego structure with a child life specialist named Marcus, who visited 3 times weekly to provide developmentally appropriate play during treatment. Dad! Lucas exclaimed, his face lighting up despite the pallor of his skin. Look what we're building. It's awesome, buddy, I said, forcing enthusiasm into my voice, despite the weight of the meeting with Caroline. Marcus gave me a knowing smile as he stood to leave. Lucas is a master builder. We're documenting his creations in a journal so he can see his progress. After Marcus left, Lucas continued building while I checked his medication schedule on the wall chart. His next dose of anti-nausea medication was due in 20 minutes, followed by antibiotics to prevent infection in his compromised immune system. Dad, Lucas said suddenly, when is Mom coming back? The question caught me off guard, though I should have expected it. Vanessa hadn't visited in 3 days, despite her promise to return the next day. Mom's very busy with work, I said carefully, but she loves you very much and thinks about you all the time. Lucas studied his Lego creation. Is it because I'm sick? Does she not want to see me because I'm sick? My heart constricted. No, Lucas, absolutely not. Your mom loves you no matter what, sick or healthy. Sometimes adults have complicated feelings and don't handle tough situations very well. It's not about you at all. He seemed to consider this, then asked, "Are you and Mom fighting?" I sat on the edge of his bed, helping him adjust the IV line that had tangled in his blanket. Mom and I are figuring out some grown-up things, but we both love you more than anything in the whole world. That will never, ever change." Lucas nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer for now. "Can we watch a movie after my medicine?" "Absolutely," I agreed, grateful for the change of subject. "You pick." That evening, after Lucas had fallen asleep watching his third viewing of How to Train Your Dragon, my phone buzzed with a text from Caroline. "Call when you can. Have info on Avalon." I stepped into the hallway, finding a quiet corner near the family lounge. Caroline answered on the second ring. "Avalon Properties LLC was formed 8 months ago," she said, without preamble. "Registered to a Jason Tate and one other person, Vanessa Calloway." Calloway, that's her maiden name. "Yes, they're purchasing investment properties in Palm Springs. 3 acquisitions so far, with money pooled from various investors. The transfers from your joint account appear to be her buy-in to the venture." I leaned against the wall, processing this information. Not only was Vanessa having an affair, but she was also investing in a business with her lover, using our family's money without my knowledge or consent. "Is that legal?" I asked. "Using marital funds without your consent for her separate business venture. It's problematic at best. We'll add it to our response filing." After hanging up, I returned to Lucas's room, watching my son's chest rise and fall in sleep, his small body curled around the stuffed dinosaur Vanessa had brought during her last visit. The betrayal I felt wasn't just about her affair or the divorce. It was about the calculated decisions that showed how long she'd been planning her exit even before Lucas got sick. The next morning, I received a text from Vanessa. "Meeting with realtor today about the house. Standard valuation. No pressure to list immediately." I showed the message to Carolyn during our phone check-in. "She can't force a sale without court approval," Caroline assured me. "We've filed for temporary exclusive use of the marital home during Lucas's treatment and recovery. Given the circumstances, the court is likely to grant it. And if they don't, we have options. Your brother's offer, temporarily renting a suitable place. The key is demonstrating stability for Lucas." I nodded, though she couldn't see me through the phone. "What about Avalon Properties?" "We've submitted discovery requests. In the meantime, I've frozen the remaining joint accounts to prevent further transfers." That afternoon, Vanessa appeared at the hospital looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "Why is our checking account frozen?" she demanded before even greeting Lucas, who was thankfully absorbed in a video game with headphones on. "Legal proceedings," I said quietly, gesturing toward the hallway. Once outside Lucas's room, I continued. "You emptied our savings without discussion. The remaining accounts are preserved pending equitable distribution." "I need that money, Thomas," she said, her voice tight. "I have commitments." "To Avalon Properties?" I asked, watching her face carefully. Her expression flickered, surprise, then calculation. "That's a business investment that will benefit both of us." "Both of us?" I repeated incredulously. "You and Jason Tate formed an LLC using our family's money without my knowledge or consent, while you were having an affair with him, and you think that benefits me?" "It's not what you think," she began, but I cut her off. It's exactly what I think. You've been planning your exit for months, Vanessa, before Lucas even got sick. The least you could do now is be honest about it. She glanced toward Lucas's room, lowering her voice. Fine. Yes, Jason and I have been seeing each other, and yes, we started Avalon together, but it's a legitimate business opportunity that I plan to tell you about once it was established. Along with telling me about the affair. She looked away. I never meant to hurt you. And yet here we are, I said, gesturing to the hospital corridor. Our son fighting cancer, you filing for divorce, me discovering one betrayal after another. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. Real ones this time, I thought. I can't do this, Thomas. I'm not strong enough for any of it. Lucas's illness, the constant hospital stays, the emotional toll. I'm falling apart. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered the nights I'd spent sleeping in a hospital recliner while she was with another man, the treatments I'd learned to administer while she was investing in vacation properties, the way Lucas's face fell each time she promised to visit and didn't. We don't always get to choose our challenges, I said finally, but we do choose how we respond to them. You're choosing to leave when things are hardest. That's your right, but don't expect me to make it easier for you. I turned to go back to Lucas, but she caught my arm. Wait, what about the house? The realtor says we could list it for much more than we thought. I stared at her, unable to comprehend how she could still be focused on money at a time like this. Our son is fighting for his life 20 feet away, and you want to discuss real estate values? That's not fair, she protested. I'm trying to be practical. We both need to move forward. My idea of moving forward is getting Lucas through this protocol with as little additional trauma as possible. If that means delaying the house sale, then that's what needs to happen. She shook her head. You can't keep using Lucas's illness to control the divorce proceedings. The unfairness of her accusation left me momentarily speechless. When I found my voice, it was calmer than I expected. You should go now. Lucas is having a good day, and I don't want it ruined by an argument he might overhear. Vanessa hesitated, then nodded. Tell him I'll call tonight. If you're actually going to call, I'll tell him. If not, I'd rather not set him up for another disappointment. She flinched but didn't argue, gathering her purse and walking toward the elevators, without visiting Lucas at all. That night, after Lucas was asleep, I sat in the dim light of his hospital room, scrolling through photos on my phone. Lucas as a newborn, his first steps, first birthday, first day of preschool. Vanessa was in many of them, looking happy, engaged, like the mother I'd believed her to be. Had it all been an act, or had something changed that I'd failed to notice? My brother Michael texted, "How's the little man doing?" "Better today," I replied. "Numbers improving. And you?" I considered the question. How was I doing? Running on almost no sleep, eating hospital cafeteria food, showering in the family bathroom down the hall, navigating a divorce and betrayal, while trying to keep my son's spirits up during the hardest thing he'd ever face. "Surviving," I texted back. "One day at a time." Michael's response came quickly. "Sarah's dropping off dinner tomorrow. Real food, not that hospital garbage. She's also bringing clean clothes and those comics Lucas likes." "You guys don't have to do that," I protested. "Family takes care of family," came the simple reply. "Family takes care of family." The words stayed with me as I tried to sleep in the recliner beside Lucas's bed. Vanessa and I had so little extended family between us, my brother and his wife, her self-absorbed mother, her distant father. We'd often said we were each other's family, that we were building our own family unit with Lucas. Now that foundation was crumbling, and I was left to rebuild something stable for our son with whatever materials remained. The next morning, Dr. Patel, Lucas's oncologist, arrived with good news. His numbers are stabilizing nicely. If this trend continues, we might be able to transition to outpatient treatment sooner than expected. "What does that mean exactly?" I asked, hope flickering. For the first time in weeks. He'd still need to come in regularly for treatments and monitoring, but he could sleep in his own bed, have more normal interactions. It helps with psychological recovery. I nodded, glancing at Lucas, who was watching us intently despite pretending to focus on his coloring book. When? Let's see how the next few days go, Dr. Patel said cautiously, but possibly within 2 weeks if all continues well. After she left, Lucas looked up at me. Can we go home soon, Dad? The question was complicated by circumstances Lucas knew nothing about. The pending divorce, the potential house sale, the legal maneuvering happening behind the scenes. But looking at his hopeful face, I couldn't bring myself to introduce doubt. It looks that way, buddy. The doctors are really pleased with how strong you're being. Lucas smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes, a rare sight during treatment. Can we get ice cream when we go home? Real ice cream, not the hospital kind. Real ice cream with all the toppings, I promised, ruffling his thinning hair gently, as soon as the doctors say it's okay. That afternoon, Caroline called with an update. The court has granted our motion for exclusive use of the marital home during Lucas's treatment and recovery phase. Your wife cannot force a sale until Lucas's medical team confirms he's stabilized, which the court is defining as 6 months of outpatient treatment with no major complications. Relief washed over me. So we can go home. Yes, the house is yours to use with Lucas for now. Your wife will need to find alternative accommodation. I hesitated. What about her things? She can arrange a time to collect personal belongings with proper notice. We'll facilitate that to minimize conflict. After hanging up, I texted Vanessa with the court's decision, trying to keep my tone neutral despite the circumstances. Her response came an hour later. This is bullshit and you know it. I'm consulting my lawyer. I didn't reply. There was nothing more to say. The following week brought more positive developments in Lucas's treatment. His blood counts improved enough that his doctors began discussing discharge plans. The child life specialist worked with him on understanding his home care requirements, medications, activity restrictions, signs that would require immediate medical attention. I worked with the hospital social worker to prepare our home, arranging for a hospital bed in the living room for days when stairs would be too much, scheduling home health visits, ordering medical supplies for delivery. Through it all, Vanessa remained largely absent, calling Lucas occasionally, but making excuses when he asked when she'd visit next. Why doesn't Mom want to see me? He asked one night as I was helping him with his bedtime routine, a complex process involving medications, central line care, and extra hygiene precautions. I sat on the edge of his bed, choosing my words carefully. Your mom loves you very much, Lucas, but sometimes grown-ups are dealing with big feelings that make it hard for them to show up the way they should. Lucas considered this. Is Mom scared? The question surprised me. What makes you ask that? He shrugged his small shoulders. When I first got sick, I was really scared. But then the doctors helped me understand what was happening, and you stayed with me every day, and I wasn't as scared anymore. Maybe Mom just needs someone to help her not be scared. My throat tightened at his insight and compassion. That's very thoughtful of you to consider, buddy. Maybe you're right. He nodded solemnly. You could help her, Dad. You're good at helping with scary things. I swallowed hard, unsure how to explain that some distances couldn't be bridged, some fears couldn't be alleviated, particularly when they were entangled with choices that had hurt others. Instead, I kissed his forehead. Get some rest now. Tomorrow's a big day. Dr. Patel is going to check if you're ready to go home. After Lucas fell asleep, I sat in the family lounge, turning our conversation over in my mind. Despite everything Vanessa had done, Lucas still loved and missed his mother. Whatever arrangements we made going forward needed to prioritize his. relationship with her, regardless of my personal feelings. I texted Vanessa. Lucas is asking about you. Possible discharge this week. He needs both his parents right now, whatever our other issues. Her response surprised me. I know. I'm sorry. It's been hard to see him sick. I'll be there tomorrow. True to her word, Vanessa appeared the next morning, bearing a gift bag and a tentative smile. Lucas's face lit up when he saw her, and despite everything, I felt grateful for his happiness. I'll give you two some time, I said, stepping toward the door. Actually, Vanessa said, I was hoping we could talk after, about arrangements going forward. I nodded, leaving them to their reunion while I went to the cafeteria for coffee. When I returned an hour later, Lucas was showing Vanessa his bravery beads, a string of colorful beads he'd earned for each procedure, medication, and milestone during treatment. Dad keeps the chart of what each color means, he explained proudly. The red ones are for blood draws, and the blue ones are for when I take my medicine without crying. Vanessa met my eyes over Lucas's head, her own filled with tears. You have a lot of beads, she said, her voice thick. You must be very brave. Dad says I'm the bravest kid in the world, Lucas said confidently. Dad is absolutely right, Vanessa agreed. After Lucas tired and dozed off for his afternoon nap, Vanessa and I stepped into the hallway to talk. He looks better than last time, she said. His counts are improving. They're talking about discharge later this week, if everything stays stable. She nodded, fiddling with her purse strap. I heard about the court decision on the house. It's temporary, I reminded her, just until Lucas is more stable. I know, I understand why you did it. She hesitated. I found an apartment nearby, month-to-month lease. I want to be more involved in Lucas's care. I know I've been absent, and that's not fair to him, or to you. I studied her face, looking for signs of the calculation I'd grown to expect, but her expression seemed genuine, tired, sad, but sincere. He needs you, I said finally. Whatever is happening between us, he needs his mother. I've been selfish, she admitted, and scared, seeing him so sick. I couldn't handle it. I ran away to protect myself, but that's not what parents do. No, I agreed. It's not. She looked down. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Thomas. I know what I've done, but I am asking for a chance to do better for Lucas. I thought about Lucas's question from the night before, about his mother being scared. His insight, even at 4 years old, had been remarkable. We can work out a schedule, I said. Once he's home, times when you can come to the house to be with him, help with his care. I can show you the medication protocols, the signs to watch for. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. I'd like that. As she turned to leave, I added, Vanessa, this doesn't change anything about the divorce or the financial issues. Those still need to be resolved fairly. Her expression faltered slightly, but she nodded. I understand. My lawyer will be in touch with yours about Avalon. There are things you should know, such as... She glanced toward Lucas's room. Not here, but soon, I promise. After she left, I called Caroline to update her on this unexpected development. Be careful, Caroline warned. Sudden changes of heart sometimes coincide with strategic legal positioning. I know, I agreed. But Lucas needs his mother, and if she's genuinely willing to step up now, I have to facilitate that for his sake. Just document everything, Caroline advised. Visits, discussions about his care, any commitments she makes. It protects both of you in the long run. The next day, Dr. Patel confirmed that Lucas could be discharged at the end of the week, transitioning to outpatient treatment with home health support. The joy on Lucas's face at this news was tempered only by his concern about leaving the nurses and child life specialists who had become his friends. We'll come back to visit, I promised, and they'll all be here for your treatments. That evening, as I packed up the accumulation of 3 months in the hospital. Books, toys, extra clothes, the blanket from home that had provided comfort. During tough nights, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Jason Tate. We need to talk about Vanessa and Avalon Properties. There are things you should know." I stared at the message, a chill running through me despite the warmth of the hospital room. After a moment's hesitation, I replied, "I'm listening." I met Jason Tate at a coffee shop 15 miles from the hospital, far enough that we wouldn't accidentally encounter Vanessa. Lucas was having a good morning, his favorite nurse on duty, and I'd promised to be back before his afternoon treatment. The cafe was nearly empty, just a few early morning customers tapping on laptops or reading newspapers. Jason was already there when I arrived, seated in a corner booth, 2 coffees on the table. He was younger than I'd expected, early 30s to my late 30s, with the polished look of someone who invested time and money in his appearance. Designer watch, expensive haircut, tailored casual clothes that likely cost more than my entire wardrobe. "Thomas," he said, standing as I approached, "thank you for meeting me." I didn't shake his extended hand, merely sliding into the booth across from him. "You said there are things I should know." He withdrew his hand, nodding as he sat back. "Down. I understand your hostility. I would feel the same in your position." "Let's skip the empathy exercise," I said. "My son is waiting for me at the hospital." Jason pushed one of the coffee cups toward me. "Black, right? Vanessa mentioned. That's how you take it." The casual reference to conversations about me made my stomach turn, but I kept my expression neutral, ignoring the offered coffee. "Why did you contact me?" He sighed, running a hand through his expertly styled hair. "Because things have gone too far, and you deserve to know the truth about Avalon Properties." "You mean the business you started with my wife, using our family's money?" "That's part of it," he acknowledged, "but there's more. Vanessa didn't just invest in Avalon, she's been moving other assets too. Jewelry, art pieces from your home, even some of her retirement funds, all into ventures I helped her set up." I stared at him, processing this information. "Why are you telling me this?" Having an attack of conscience. A flash of something like shame crossed his face. "Partially, but also because I'm cutting ties with Vanessa, professionally and personally, and I don't want to be caught in the crossfire of what's coming." "What's coming?" Jason leaned forward. "Vanessa isn't just planning to divorce you. She's been systematically moving assets for nearly a year, positioning herself for a complete break. The Avalon investment was just one piece. There's a whole network of accounts and LLCs. If that's true, why would she suddenly want to be more involved in Lucas's care? She's barely visited him for months." Jason's expression turned grim. "Because her lawyer advised her that abandoning a critically ill child looks terrible in court. She needs to establish a pattern of involvement before the final custody hearing. The calculated nature of this, using Lucas as a pawn in a financial strategy, made my blood run cold. You expect me to believe you're suddenly concerned about my son's welfare? You've been sleeping with his mother while he fights cancer." "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Jason said, echoing Vanessa's words from the day before. "What I did was wrong, and I've got no excuses. But when I got involved with Vanessa, she told me you two were already separated, that you were living at the hospital by choice, not necessity." "And you believed that?" "At first," he admitted. "Then I visited her at your house one evening and saw the family photos, Lucas's toys everywhere, mail addressed to both of you. I started asking questions. Questions she didn't have. Good answers for, I guessed." He nodded. "She's been lying to everyone, you, me, her friends, probably even her lawyer. When I confronted her, she said you'd abandoned her emotionally, that you were obsessed with your career and Lucas, that you never made time for her." I let out a bitter laugh. "I'm a physical therapist at a children's hospital. I help kids. Learn to walk again after accidents and illnesses. It's hardly a path to fame and fortune." "I know that now," Jason said quietly. "I've done my research since things started feeling off. You've received commendations for your work with pediatric cancer patients. You take call on holidays so colleagues with families can be home. You started a support group for parents of chronically ill children. The fact that this man, this stranger who had been sleeping with my wife, knew these details about my life felt like another invasion. What do you want, Jason? A medal for finally developing a conscience?" He reached into his jacket, removing a USB drive which he placed on the table between us. "I want to give you this. It contains financial records for all the entities Vanessa has created or invested in using your family's assets. Account numbers, transaction histories, corporate filings, everything your lawyer will need." I stared at the small device, not reaching for it. Why would you betray her like this? Because what she's doing isn't just wrong. It's illegal in some cases. She forged your signature on at least 3 documents that I've seen. And because, he hesitated, because I saw Lucas's picture on her phone. He looks like my nephew who had leukemia when he was 5. My sister went through hell during his treatment, and the thought that I've been part of making that situation even harder for a child and his father. He shook his head. "I can't do it anymore." Reluctantly, I reached for the USB drive, still suspicious of his motives. "What do you get out of this?" "Nothing except maybe the ability to sleep at night," Jason replied. "I've already withdrawn from Avalon and transferred my shares to a neutral third party. I'm moving to Chicago next week for a new position. My involvement with Vanessa and her financial schemes is over." "She'll know you gave me this information." He nodded. "Probably. But that's my problem, not yours." He slid a business card across the table. "My direct line, in case your lawyer has questions about any of the documentation. I'm willing to provide a sworn statement if needed." I pocketed both items, still processing the conversation. "Is there anything else I should know?" Jason hesitated. "She's meeting with her lawyer this afternoon. I think she's planning to challenge the court order about the house, maybe even the temporary custody arrangement. You should be prepared." Standing to leave, I finally looked directly at Jason. "I don't forgive you for your part in this, but I appreciate the information." He nodded, accepting this. "Your son is lucky to have you, Thomas. Not all kids with sick parents have someone willing to put them first." The comment struck me as odd until I remembered what Vanessa had told him, that we were already separated, that I was the absent one. In his mind, he was complimenting my dedication compared to Vanessa's abandonment, not recognizing the irony of his statement. "Take care of Lucas," he added as I turned to go. "Kids see more than we think." On the drive back to the hospital, I called Caroline and explained the unexpected meeting. "I have financial documents that may show Vanessa has been hiding assets and possibly committing fraud. How quickly can you review them?" "Bring them to my office this afternoon," she said. "I'll have my financial forensics person on standby." "I can't leave Lucas for that long," I explained. "We're preparing for discharge on Friday, and he gets anxious when I'm gone too much." Caroline considered this. "I'll send my assistant to the hospital. She can collect the drive and bring it directly to the office. In the meantime, say nothing to Vanessa about this information." When I arrived back at Lucas's room, he was sitting up in bed, color in his cheeks for the first time in weeks, playing a card game with his child life specialist. "Dad!" he exclaimed. "I'm winning!" "He's a card shark," the specialist Layla agreed with a wink. "I should be charging him for these lessons instead of the other way around." Lucas giggled, a sound so precious I felt it physically in my chest. For months, laughter had been rare, hidden beneath the weight of illness, treatment, and the unspoken tension between his parents. "Did you get your grown-up things done?" Lucas asked as I sat beside him. All done, I assured him. Just in time to see you beat Layla at cards. After Layla left, Lucas and I had lunch together. Hospital pizza for him, a sandwich from the cafeteria for me. He ate more than he had in days, another positive sign that his body was responding to treatment. Dad, he said suddenly, setting down his juice box, when we go home, will Mom be there? The question I'd been dreading. Mom has her own place. Right now, buddy, but she'll visit often and you'll spend time with both of us. Lucas considered this. Because you and Mom don't want to live together anymore? That's right, I said gently. Sometimes grown-ups realize they can't live together anymore, but that doesn't change how much they love their children. Will I have to choose? He asked, his voice small. Choose what, buddy? Which one of you to live with? My friend, Zach's parents got divorced, and he has to go back and forth all the time. He says it's exhausting. The maturity of his concern hit me hard. At 4 years old, Lucas shouldn't have to worry about custody arrangements or divided loyalties. He should be thinking about superheroes and dinosaurs, not which parent deserves more of his time. You won't have to choose, I promised. Mom and I will figure out what's best for you, and we'll make sure you know exactly what's happening every step of the way. He nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. Can we watch a movie now? Absolutely, I agreed, grateful for the change of subject. You pick. That afternoon, Caroline's assistant arrived to collect the USB drive, promising results by the following morning. Meanwhile, Lucas's care team conducted final evaluations before discharge, reviewing home care protocols and scheduling follow-up appointments. Dr. Patel pulled me aside after examining Lucas. He's doing remarkably well, all things considered. His resilience is impressive. He gets that from his mother, I said automatically, then caught myself. Despite everything, some habits died hard. Giving Vanessa credit for Lucas's positive traits had been second nature throughout our marriage. Dr. Patel smiled, unaware of the complexity behind my comment. Children often surprise us with their strength. Now, about the discharge plan, I understand there are some family dynamics at play. Word had obviously spread through the care team about our situation. We're separating, I confirmed, but both committed to Lucas's care. I'm glad to hear it, she said diplomatically. Consistency is crucial during recovery. Lucas needs to know he can count on both his parents, even if your relationship has changed. After she left, I received a text from Vanessa. Need to talk. Coming to hospital around 6. I showed the message to Lucas, who brightened immediately. Mom's coming. She is, I confirmed, pushing aside my own complicated feelings to support his excitement. Should we save her some dinner? Lucas nodded enthusiastically. The mac and cheese today is really good. When Vanessa arrived, she looked different than she had the day before, more polished, more like her pre-diagnosis self. She carried a gift bag and a file folder, suggesting this wasn't just a casual visit. Lucas greeted her with enthusiasm, proudly showing off the discharge instructions he'd been reviewing with his nurse, explaining in 4-year-old terms what each medication was for. This one makes my blood stronger, he said, pointing to a bottle. And this one fights the bad cells that try to make me sick. Vanessa listened attentively, asking appropriate questions and praising his understanding. To an outside observer, she appeared every inch the devoted mother. Perhaps she was, in her way. People were complicated, capable of genuine love alongside terrible betrayal. After Lucas, tired and settled in with a movie, Vanessa gestured toward the hallway. Can we talk privately? In the family lounge, she placed the file folder on the table between us. My lawyer prepared these. Alternative. Proposals for the custody and property arrangements. I didn't reach for the folder. I'll have Caroline review anything you want to propose. This is time-sensitive, Thomas, with Lucas coming home. Nothing about our divorce is more time-sensitive than his recovery, I interrupted. The court has already ruled on temporary arrangements. Any changes can go through proper channels. Vanessa's expression hardened slightly. I know you think I've been a terrible mother. I've never said that. You didn't have to, she snapped. It's in every look, every interaction. You've positioned yourself as the martyr, the devoted father, while I'm the villain who abandoned her sick child. I took a deep breath, conscious of keeping my voice level. I've only ever told Lucas that you love him, and that adults sometimes struggle with difficult situations. I've defended your absences, made excuses for missed visits, and ensured he knows you're still his mother, regardless of what's happening between us. She looked away, the fight seeming to drain out of her. I know. That's probably worse somehow. Your determined decency makes what I've done seem even more terrible. This isn't about making anyone feel terrible, I said. It's about giving Lucas the stability and support he needs during the hardest time of his young life. Vanessa nodded slowly. You're right. Of course you're right. She pushed the folder toward me. Just look these over. They're reasonable proposals. Joint decision-making on medical issues, structured visitation transitioning to shared custody as he improves, equitable division of assets. I finally took the folder, tucking it under my arm without opening it. I'll have Caroline review them. There's something else, Vanessa said, her voice dropping. Have you spoken to Jason Tate? I kept my expression neutral, remembering Caroline's advice. Why would I have spoken to your colleague? She studied my face. No reason, just, if he contacts you, you should know he's not a reliable source of information. We had a falling out over some business matters. I'll keep that in mind, I said non-committally. Before she could press further, Lucas's nurse appeared in the doorway. Mr. Mercer, Lucas is asking for you. It's time for his evening medications. I need to go, I told Vanessa, grateful for the interruption. You're welcome to stay, but he'll likely fall asleep soon after his meds. She hesitated, then nodded. I'll come back tomorrow. Maybe bring some things from home to make his return more comfortable. That would be nice, I agreed. He's been talking about his blue dinosaur blanket. I know exactly which one, Vanessa said. And for a moment, we were just parents again, united in our knowledge of our child's preferences and comforts. After Vanessa left and Lucas fell asleep, I opened the folder she'd provided. The documents inside were professionally prepared, reasonable on the surface, exactly as she'd described. But there were subtle issues that concerned me. Vague language about financial disclosures, an accelerated timeline for selling the house, provisions that would give her equal decision-making authority on Lucas's medical care, despite her limited involvement thus far. I photographed each page with my phone, sending the images to Caroline with a brief explanation. Her response came within minutes. Don't sign anything. These are carefully worded to seem reasonable while securing significant advantages. We'll call in morning to discuss. The next day brought a flurry of activity. Lucas's final discharge, preparations, a visit from Caroline to discuss both Jason's financial evidence and Vanessa's proposed agreements, and preparations for bringing Lucas home after 3 months in the hospital. Caroline arrived mid-morning while Lucas was having final tests run. We've reviewed the financial documents, she said without preamble. It's worse than we thought. Vanessa hasn't just been hiding assets, she's been systematically removing them from joint ownership for nearly a year. The Avalon Properties investment is just the tip of the iceberg. How bad are we talking? Based on our preliminary analysis, approximately $380,000 in assets have been transferred, hidden or leveraged without your knowledge or consent, some using apparently forged signatures. I sat heavily in the family lounge chair. That's most of what we had. Caroline nodded grimly, which explains the rush to settle and her willingness to take on more of Lucas's care suddenly. She's trying to secure a seemingly fair agreement before you discover the extent of the financial deception. What do we do? We've already filed emergency motions with the court, asset freezes, forensic accounting orders, and modifications to the temporary support arrangements. Given the evidence, the judge is likely to rule in our favor. And Lucas, how does this affect him? Caroline's expression softened. The good news is that this strengthens your position regarding his care and custody. The court takes a very dim view of parents who prioritize financial gain over a child's welfare, especially a child with serious medical needs. I don't want to keep Lucas from her, I clarified. Despite everything, she's still his mother. I understand, Caroline assured me. We'll structure any agreements to protect his relationship with both parents while ensuring his medical needs take priority. After Caroline left, I found myself staring out the hospital window, watching normal life continue in the parking lot below, people coming and going, unaware of the small dramas and large tragedies playing out in the rooms above them. For months, the hospital had been our whole world. Now we were preparing to re-enter regular life, but nothing would be the same. Lucas returned from his tests, chattering excitedly about going home. "Dad, the nurse says I can wear my own pajamas tonight instead of the hospital ones." "That's right," I confirmed, pushing aside my troubled thoughts to match his enthusiasm. "And tomorrow we'll be sleeping in our own beds." "Will all my toys still be there?" he asked suddenly, a flicker of worry crossing his face. "Every single one," I promised. "Nothing's changed at home. It's all waiting for you." Except, of course, everything had changed, but Lucas didn't need those burdens yet. For now, he could focus on the comfort of returning to familiar surroundings, while I navigated the complex adult world that had fractured around us. That evening, as I helped Lucas pack his accumulated hospital possessions, my phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "Need to talk urgently. Legal issues arising. Meet tomorrow before discharge." I showed the message to Caroline, who advised caution. "She's likely been notified of our emergency filings. Agree to meet, but only in a public setting with Lucas nearby but out of earshot. Record the conversation if legal in your state." I replied to Vanessa, suggesting we meet in the hospital cafeteria at 9 a.m., an hour before Lucas's scheduled discharge. Her terse fine suggested she wasn't pleased with the public venue, but had little choice. As Lucas fell asleep that night, his last in the hospital unless complications arose, I sat beside his bed, thinking about what lay ahead. The legal battles, the financial untangling, the co-parenting challenges with someone who had proven untrustworthy. It felt overwhelming, yet also strangely clarifying. For months, I'd been focused solely on Lucas's medical fight. Now I could see the broader landscape of our future, with all its challenges and possibilities. My brother Michael texted, "House is stocked." Sarah set up the medical equipment and made Lucas's favorite lasagna for tomorrow. "We're here whatever you need." The simple message brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Throughout this ordeal, while Vanessa had retreated and betrayed, others had stepped forward with unfailing support. My brother and sister-in-law, Lucas's medical team, even colleagues who had covered my shifts without complaint during my extended leave. "Thank you," I texted back. "We couldn't have made it this far without you both." Looking at my sleeping son, thinner, paler but alive and improving, I felt a surge of determination. Whatever challenges awaited us outside the hospital, walls, we would face them together. Lucas had fought with courage beyond his years. Now it was my turn to show the same resolve in rebuilding our life. The road ahead would be difficult, with medical treatments, legal proceedings, and emotional adjustments, all demanding attention simultaneously. But watching Lucas's peaceful sleep, I realized that the worst was behind us. We had survived the darkest days of his diagnosis and treatment. We would survive this too. I gently adjusted his blanket, careful not to disturb the IV line that would be removed tomorrow. "We've got this, buddy," I whispered. "One day at a time." I sat in the hospital cafeteria at 8:55 a.m., coffee cooling untouched before me, watching the entrance for Vanessa's arrival. The discharge papers for Lucas were ready, his few personal belongings packed, the car seat installed in my brother's SUV, which he'd loaned me for greater comfort during Lucas's ride home. Everything was prepared for our departure from the sterile environment that had been our world for the past 3 months. Vanessa arrived precisely at 9, dressed in what I recognized as her client meeting outfit, tailored blazer, silk blouse, hair perfectly styled. She carried a leather portfolio and wore an expression of practiced neutrality that I'd seen countless times during our marriage when she was preparing for a difficult conversation. "Thomas," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. You said it was urgent," I replied, keeping my voice level. "Lucas is being discharged in less than an hour." She placed the portfolio on the table, glancing around at the half-empty cafeteria. "I received some concerning communications from my lawyer yesterday. Apparently, you've filed emergency motions regarding our finances." "That's correct." "Based on what? Some misguided belief that I've been hiding assets?" I met her gaze steadily. "Not belief, evidence. Very thorough evidence of systematic financial misconduct, spanning nearly a year." She paled slightly, but recovered quickly. "If this is about Avalon Properties, I've already explained that it was a legitimate investment opportunity that would benefit both of us, eventually." "This is about much more than Avalon," I said quietly. "It's about the vacation property in Sedona, purchased through Clearwater Holdings LLC, the art and jewelry liquidated through online auctions, the retirement accounts emptied and reinvested, under your maiden name, the home equity line of credit taken out using a forged signature." With each example, Vanessa's composure cracked further, her eyes darting around as if seeking escape. "Who have you been talking to?" she demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Does it matter? The documentation speaks for itself. Bank statements, transfer records, corporate filings, all showing a clear pattern of financial deception while our son was fighting for his life." Vanessa leaned forward, dropping the pretense of innocence. "You don't understand. I was protecting myself, protecting both of us. If Lucas's treatment had bankrupted us—" "Stop," I interrupted, disgust rising in my throat. "Don't you dare use Lucas's illness to justify what you did. His medical care was covered by insurance. The additional expenses were manageable. This was never about protecting our family finances." She sat back, momentarily silenced by the truth. "The court has issued a freeze on all the accounts we've identified," I continued. "A forensic accountant is reviewing everything. Any assets improperly transferred will be returned to the marital estate for equitable distribution." "You'll ruin me," she whispered. "No, Vanessa, you did that yourself." She straightened, a flash of the capable businesswoman returning. "What do you want, Thomas? Everyone has a price. Name yours and let's end this." The suggestion that this was a negotiation, that I was leveraging our son's illness and her financial misconduct for personal gain, was the final insult. "This isn't a business deal. It's our life. Lucas's life. I want what's fair. Nothing more, nothing less." "And what's fair in your mind? You keep the house, full custody, all our assets?" "I want Lucas to have stability during his recovery. I want financial support for his ongoing medical needs. I want to rebuild some semblance of security after you systematically dismantled it. And yes, I want him to maintain a relationship with his mother despite everything." Vanessa's expression shifted, the calculated mask falling away to reveal something more vulnerable. You still want me in his life? After everything? You're his mother, I said simply. Lucas loves you. Nothing changes that. Tears filled her eyes, real ones this time, not the performance I'd grown accustomed to. I don't deserve that consideration. This isn't about what you deserve. It's about what Lucas needs. She wiped at her eyes, careful not to smudge her makeup. What happens now? We proceed with the legal process. Your lawyer and Caroline will work out the details. In the meantime, we focus on Lucas's homecoming and recovery. Vanessa nodded. Slowly. I'd still like to help with his care, if you'll allow it. We can establish a visitation schedule once he's settled, I agreed. Supervised at first, until you're familiar with his medication protocols and care requirements. Supervised? Like I'm some kind of danger to him? Like you're someone who hasn't been actively involved in his medical care and needs guidance before being solely responsible for a child with complex health needs, I corrected. This isn't punishment, Vanessa. It's what's medically necessary. She seemed to accept this, however reluctantly. When can I see him? He's being discharged at 10. I'm taking him home to rest today. You can come by tomorrow afternoon if you'd like. I'll show you his medication schedule, the signs to watch for, how to care for his central line. Vanessa gathered her portfolio, preparing to leave. I'll be there. And Thomas, I am sorry, not just for getting caught, but for all of it. I nodded, neither accepting nor rejecting her apology. Lucas will be happy to see you tomorrow. As she stood to leave, she hesitated. Jason Tate gave you the financial information, didn't he? I maintained a neutral expression. The source isn't important. The facts speak for themselves. She gave a bitter laugh. Jason, always the principled one when it suits him. Did he mention his own role in all this? How he designed the entire financial structure, introduced me to the right people, helped me move assets offshore? He provided documentation, I said carefully. His motives are his own concern. Just be careful trusting him completely, Vanessa warned. Jason doesn't do anything without an angle. After she left, I sat for a moment processing the conversation. Her warning about Jason troubled me, but addressing that would have to wait. Today was about Lucas and the milestone of returning home after his long hospitalization. I headed back to his room, finding him dressed in real clothes for the first time in months, jeans that hung loosely on his thin frame, a superhero t-shirt, and the light-up sneakers he'd insisted on wearing despite my concerns about their practicality with his weakened legs. "Dad, is it time to go home now?" he asked, practically bouncing with excitement despite his fragility. "Almost, buddy," I smiled, helping him with his jacket. "The doctors just need to do one final check, and then we're free." Dr. Patel arrived for the final examination, reviewing Lucas's discharge instructions with both of us. "Remember, he'll tire easily for several weeks. Short activities followed by rest, strict medication schedule, and at the first sign of fever, anything over 100. 4. Bring him straight to the emergency room." I nodded, having memorized these instructions over days of preparation. "We're ready." Dr. Patel smiled, turning to Lucas. "You've been one of my bravest patients, Lucas. Keep fighting like you have been, and I'll see you next week for your checkup." Lucas gave her a solemn high five, their established ritual. "I promise to take all my medicine, even the yucky ones." "That's what I like to hear," Dr. Patel laughed, signing the final discharge forms. A nurse arrived with a wheelchair, hospital policy for all discharges, and Lucas climbed in, clutching the small backpack of treasures he'd accumulated during his stay. Cards from the hospital staff, a handmade blanket from the volunteer knitting group, stuffed animals from various visitors, and his prized collection of bravery beads. As we made our way through the hospital corridors, staff members stopped to wish Lucas well, many having become like extended family during our stay. The security guard who always gave Lucas stickers, the cafeteria worker who saved the best pudding, cups for him, the janitor who would do magic tricks with rubber gloves when Lucas was having a hard day. "You'll come back to visit, right?" asked Layla, the child life specialist who had helped Lucas through countless difficult procedures. "I promised," Lucas assured her, reaching for a hug. Outside, the April sunshine felt almost shocking after so many months under fluorescent lights. Lucas tilted his face up, eyes closed, basking in the natural warmth. "The sun feels different. Out here," he observed. "Better?" I asked, helping him from the wheelchair into the waiting SUV. "Different," he repeated thoughtfully, "like it remembers we exist." These moments of unexpected wisdom still caught me by surprise, glimpses of the old soul that seemed to inhabit my young son's body, perhaps nurtured by his premature confrontation with mortality. The drive home was quiet, Lucas drowsy from the excitement and exertion of the morning. When we pulled into our driveway, I saw the welcome banner my brother and sister-in-law had hung across the front porch. "Welcome home, Lucas," surrounded by dinosaur stickers, his current obsession. "Look, Dad," Lucas pointed excitedly. "Dinosaurs!" "Looks like Uncle Michael and Aunt Sarah left us a surprise," I smiled, helping him from the car. The front door opened before we reached it, my brother appearing with a camera. "There's the champion! Welcome home, buddy!" Lucas gave a tired but genuine smile as I carried him up the steps. Inside, the house had been transformed, cleaned, organized, decorated with welcome signs, and filled with the smell of Sarah's lasagna baking in the oven. A hospital bed had been set up in the living room as we'd discussed, positioned to see the television, but also the backyard garden through the large windows. "You didn't have to do all this," I said to Michael, as Lucas excitedly rediscovered his toys. "Of course we did," Michael replied, clapping my shoulder. "That's what family does." Sarah emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. "Everything's ready. Meals in the freezer labeled by day. Medical supplies organized. In the bathroom and the guest room ready for you, since I assumed you'd want to be close to Lucas at night." The thoughtfulness of their preparations brought unexpected emotion to my throat. For months, I'd been functioning in survival mode, making decisions, navigating medical crises, processing betrayal, all while trying to maintain a brave face. For Lucas. Now, faced with such practical kindness, I felt the full weight of everything we'd endured. "Thank you," I managed. "Both of you." Sarah hugged me tightly. "You're not alone in this, Thomas. Remember that." The rest of the day passed in a gentle rhythm of medication schedules, short play periods, and multiple naps for Lucas. By evening, he was settled in the hospital bed, surrounded by familiar toys, and comfortable in ways that had been impossible in the hospital. "Dad," he called, as I adjusted his blankets for the night. "Are we home for good now?" "We're home," I confirmed. "You'll still have treatments at the hospital, but you get to sleep here every night." He was quiet for a moment, considering this. Is Mom coming home too? The question I'd been anticipating but dreading nonetheless. "Remember how we talked about Mum having her own place now? She'll visit you here, and when you're stronger, you'll sometimes stay with her too. Because you and Mum aren't going to live together anymore," he remembered. "That's right, but we both love you very much, and that won't ever change." Lucas nodded, sleepy but still processing. "Dad, are you sad about Mom?" The directness of his question caught me off guard. I considered deflecting, offering the kind of sanitized response adults often give children about complex emotional situations. But Lucas had faced too much reality lately for me to insult him with platitudes. "Yes," I admitted, "I'm sad about some things, but I'm also grateful for many things. Especially you." He seemed satisfied with this answer, his eyelids growing heavy. "I'm sad sometimes too, but then I remember that sad isn't forever." "That's very wise, buddy," I said softly, brushing hair from his forehead. "The hospital social worker told me that," he confided with a yawn. "She said feelings are like weather. They change, even when it seems like the rain will never stop." "She's absolutely right," I agreed, watching as he drifted towards sleep. "Dad?" he murmured, already half dreaming. "Yes, Lucas. I'm glad. You're my dad." "I'm glad you're my son," I whispered, staying beside him until his breathing deepened into sleep. After ensuring the baby monitor was working, a precaution suggested by the discharge team, I retreated to the kitchen where Michael and Sarah were cleaning up. "He's asleep," I reported, accepting the glass of wine Sarah offered. "Out like a light." "Big day," Michael nodded. "How are you holding up?" I considered the question, realizing I hadn't really stopped to assess my own state in months. "Functioning," I decided finally, taking it one day at a time. Sarah sat across from me at the kitchen island. "Caroline called while you were settling. Lucas, she said to tell you the judge granted all the emergency motions. Asset freeze is in place, and the forensic accountant has been authorized to investigate all accounts." "That's good," I said, feeling a weight lift slightly. At least the financial hemorrhaging had been stopped. "She also mentioned something about real estate records that seemed concerning," Michael added. "Something about property transfers in Lucas's name." I frowned. "Lucas's name? That doesn't make sense." She didn't have details yet, just flagged it as something to discuss tomorrow. After Michael and Sarah left, promising to return the next day to help with Lucas's care, I sat on the back porch with my laptop, reviewing the financial documents Jason Tate had provided. There was indeed a reference to something called Lucas Mercer Trust, but minimal details about its contents or purpose. I emailed Caroline about this discovery, then checked on Lucas one more time before attempting to sleep myself. The guest room felt strange, technically my own house, but I'd been away so long that everything seemed slightly unfamiliar. The silence was particularly disconcerting. After months of hospital sounds, beeping monitors, nurses' voices, the constant hum of medical equipment. Morning brought new routines to master, administering medications with precision timing, preparing the special high-calorie breakfast Lucas needed to regain strength, monitoring his energy levels as he excitedly rediscovered his home environment. By mid-morning, he was already showing signs of fatigue, reluctantly agreeing to rest on the couch with a movie. Caroline called while Lucas napped. "I've found something concerning in the real estate records," she said without preamble. "Vanessa established a trust in Lucas's name about 5 months ago. She's been transferring properties into it, including a lake house purchased last year that you may not have known about." "A lake house? We don't have a lake house." "According to these records, Clearwater Holdings, one of Vanessa's shell companies, purchased a property at Lake Chelan last July. 3 months ago, ownership was transferred to the Lucas Mercer Trust, with Vanessa as sole trustee. I struggled to process this information. Why would she put properties in Lucas's name? "It's a common tactic in high-conflict divorces," Caroline explained. "Assets in a child's trust are technically not marital property, but if the parent establishes themselves as trustee with broad powers, they maintain effective control while shielding the assets from division." "So she's using Lucas as a shield for hidden assets," I said, anger rising. "That's a new low." "It gets worse," Caroline continued. "The trust documents give her authority to utilize trust assets for the benefit of the beneficiary as deemed appropriate by the trustee. Essentially, she can use the properties or their proceeds however she wants, under the guise of benefiting Lucas." "Can we challenge this?" "Absolutely. I've already added it to our court filings. The judge has authorized an injunction preventing any transactions involving the trust, pending further investigation. After hanging up, I sat with this new information, trying to reconcile it with the woman I'd believed I knew for 7 years. Using our son's name to hide assets seemed particularly calculating, even given everything else she'd done. Vanessa arrived at 2 p.m. as arranged, looking nervous as she stood on the porch with a gift bag and what appeared to be groceries. I invited her in, leading her to the living room where Lucas was building with Legos, his energy somewhat restored after his morning rest. "Mom!" he exclaimed, his face lighting up with genuine joy that pierced through my anger and resentment. Whatever Vanessa had done, Lucas loved her. That reality couldn't be ignored. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, kneeling beside him carefully, mindful of the IV line still attached to his chest. "I brought some things from home you might have missed." She unpacked the bag, his favorite blue dinosaur blanket, a stuffed triceratops she'd given him for his 4th birthday, the nightlight, that projected stars onto his ceiling that had comforted him since toddlerhood. The thoughtfulness of these selections surprised me, evidence of the maternal instinct that I'd begun to doubt still existed. Lucas showed her his Lego creation, explaining in elaborate detail the story behind the structure. Vanessa listened, attentively, asking questions and following his sometimes convoluted narrative. For a brief moment we might have been any family, mother, father, child, enjoying an ordinary afternoon. "Would you like to see Lucas's medication schedule?" I asked when there was a natural pause. "We need to administer the next round in about 20 minutes. Vanessa nodded, following me to the kitchen, where I'd created a detailed chart of Lucas's treatment protocol. "This is extensive," she said, scanning the multiple medications, dosages, and timing requirements. "It's critical to follow exactly," I explained, showing her how to measure the liquid medications, how to flush the central line before and after administration, which symptoms required immediate medical attention. To her credit, Vanessa paid careful attention, taking notes and asking appropriate questions. "I want to learn all of this," she said quietly. "I know I haven't been present like I should have been, but I want to do better." I studied her face, looking for signs of the calculation I'd grown to expect. But her expression seemed genuine, concerned, focused, determined to master information that could help her son. "The home health nurse comes tomorrow," I told her. "You're welcome to be here for that visit. She can show you the central line care in more detail." "I'd like that," Vanessa agreed. "I can rearrange my schedule." As we administered Lucas's medications together, me demonstrating, her observing carefully, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu, remembering the early days of his life when we'd functioned as a team, figuring out parenthood together one challenge at a time. "You're really good at this," Vanessa observed, as I comforted Lucas through the brief discomfort of the medication administration. "He trusts you completely." "We've had a lot of practice," I said simply. "He's incredibly brave." Lucas beamed at the praise, then asked if he could show his mom the bravery beads he'd earned during treatment. As they sat together, Lucas explaining each bead's significance, I retreated to the kitchen to prepare his afternoon snack, carefully balanced for maximum nutrition in small, manageable portions. When I returned, I found Vanessa helping Lucas arrange his beads in a new display case she'd apparently brought as another gift. Their heads were bent together, the similarity in their profiles suddenly striking, the same determined set of the jaw, the same thoughtful furrow between the eyebrows when concentrating. "Dad!" Lucas called, spotting me. "Mum got me a special box for my beads. Now I can see all of them at once." "That's wonderful, buddy," I said, placing his snack on the side table. "Yogurt and granola time. Doctor's orders." Lucas made a face but didn't protest, accustomed to the strict nutritional regimen required for his recovery. "I should go," Vanessa said, checking her watch. I have a meeting. She hesitated, perhaps realizing how similar this sounded to her many excuses during Lucas's hospitalization. You could stay for dinner, Lucas suggested hopefully. Dad and I are having spaghetti. Aunt Sarah made it, and it's in the freezer. Vanessa glanced at me questioningly. I nodded slightly. An olive branch extended not for her sake, but for Lucas's. I'd like that, she said, visibly relieved, if your dad doesn't mind. There's plenty, I confirmed. Lucas needs to rest before dinner anyway. Maybe you could help him organize those Legos while I heat everything up. The evening passed. With surprising ease. Conversation limited to Lucas's interests and recovery, all adult tensions temporarily set aside in service of creating a peaceful environment for our son. After dinner, Vanessa helped with Lucas's evening medications, showing she'd been paying attention to the earlier demonstration. As Lucas grew sleepy, he asked if both parents would read him a bedtime story, a request that caught us both off guard, but was impossible to refuse. We sat on either side of his hospital bed, taking turns reading pages of his chosen book, falling into a rhythm that felt both familiar and painfully nostalgic. When Lucas finally drifted off, Vanessa and I retreated to the kitchen to clean up dinner dishes in silence that was neither comfortable nor hostile, just necessary. Thank you, she said finally, drying the last plate, for letting me be part of today. Lucas needs both his parents, I replied, the phrase becoming something of a mantra. Whatever happens between us doesn't change that. Vanessa sat down, the dish towel turning to face me directly. Caroline called my lawyer about the Lake Chelan property. Yes, I can explain that. Can you? I interrupted, keeping my voice low to avoid waking Lucas. Can you explain using our son's name to hide assets? Because that seems particularly calculated, even for recent events. Vanessa flinched. It wasn't about hiding assets from you. It was about protecting something for Lucas's future. By making yourself sole trustee with complete discretion over how to use those assets. She looked away. The legal structure was Jason's idea. He said it was standard practice. For people attempting to conceal assets during divorce, perhaps. I didn't know you were tracking the financial transfers, she admitted. I thought you were too focused on Lucas's care to notice what was happening with our accounts. The blunt admission of her exploitation of our son's illness hit like a physical blow. That's the problem, Vanessa. You saw my dedication to our critically ill child as an opportunity rather than a shared responsibility. She had no response to this truth. I've requested the court appoint an independent trustee for any legitimate trusts established for Lucas's benefit, I continued. If you genuinely created these for his future, you should have no objection. Of course not, she agreed quickly. I want what's best for Lucas. As she gathered her purse to leave, I wondered if that statement was finally becoming true, or if it was simply another calculation in an ongoing strategy. The home health nurse comes at 10 tomorrow, I reminded her, if you're serious about learning Lucas's care protocols. Vanessa nodded. I'll be here. At the door, she hesitated. Thomas, I know it doesn't change anything, but I am sorry. For all of it. I didn't answer, just nodded acknowledgement of her words without acceptance or rejection. As her car pulled away, I checked on Lucas one more time, finding him peacefully asleep, surrounded by the comfort items Vanessa had brought, tangible reminders of the complex reality that both his parents loved him, despite the broken relationship. Between them, standing in the quiet house, I realized that today marked a turning point, not just in Lucas's medical journey, but in my own path forward. For months, I'd existed in reaction mode, responding to medical crises, legal challenges, emotional betrayals. Now it was time to be proactive about shaping our future. I made a new list on my phone, different from the defensive measures I'd been forced to take previously. Research schools with good support for children with medical needs, find a therapist. Specializing in children coping with serious illness and family changes. Investigate remote work options to maintain flexibility for Lucas's ongoing treatment. Look into support groups for single parents of children with cancer. Schedule time for my own physical and mental health maintenance. The list wasn't about protection or damage control. It was about building something new, something stable and nurturing for Lucas and sustainable for me. The road ahead would be challenging, with ongoing medical treatments, legal proceedings, and co-parenting hurdles to navigate. But for the first time in months, I felt a sense of possibility rather than just endurance. Lucas had shown remarkable resilience throughout his illness, facing pain, fear, and uncertainty with a courage that humbled me daily. I owed it to him to demonstrate the same resilience in rebuilding our life, to show him that adversity could be not just survived, but transformed into something meaningful. As I prepared for bed that night, my phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Patel. "How did day one at home go?" "Better than expected," I replied honestly. "Lucas is happy to be home." "And how are you doing?" came her follow-up question. I considered this carefully before responding. "Finding my way forward, one step at a time." Her reply was immediate. "That's all any of us can do. See you at Lucas's checkup next week. Call any time if questions arise." I set the phone down, that simple exchange reinforcing what had become increasingly clear throughout this ordeal. We were not alone. Friends, family, medical professionals, even unexpected allies like Jason Tate, a network of support, had materialized around us when we needed it most. The marriage I thought would last a lifetime had crumbled. The trust I'd given freely had been betrayed. The financial security I'd worked to build had been threatened. Yet somehow, in the midst of these losses, new foundations were being laid, different, unexpected, but perhaps ultimately stronger for having been forged through adversity. Lucas had said it with the wisdom children sometimes possess. Sad isn't forever. Neither was anger or betrayal or fear. What remained constant was love, my love for my son, his love for me, and the commitment to move forward together into whatever the future held. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.